Name a more iconic duo than Batman and Robin. I'll wait. Well, I won't actually, because Batman and Robin is always the correct answer. Since the birth of this channel, we've talked up and down the neighborhood about Batman to the point where it's almost a joke when he shows up in the thumbnail. He's probably in this one, I haven't made it yet. And a lot of said Batman content here has revolved around the delicate details of the Dark Knight's dressings, the questionable characteristics of his costume. But there's another half to that dynamic duo, the much smaller, more colorful, happier little dude with the swoopy hair. And his costume, well, its origin has been a feverishly head-scratching mystery among the fans of Batman the Animated Series for nearly 30 years. So, we are gonna get to the bottom of things. Tim Drake's Robin suit literally came out of nowhere, and today we track down just where nowhere is. 40 years from now, whenever now is, the technology of the DCAU has come a long way. We've got force field belts that help the immunocompromised, we've got holographic espionage robots, we've even got those flying cars all the movies promised us. But apparently this world's future is still severely lacking in stable cybersecurity. But while I may not be able to help you against Akira-style space guns, I can get you on board with 3 free months of Surfshark VPN. You've probably heard of virtual private networks before, but maybe don't know for sure how they work. Surfshark latches onto your internet connection like Brainiac taking over Lex Luthor's body. Only instead of sprouting a bunch of horrific robot tentacles out of your limbs, it actually hides your IP address from looky-loos trying to nab your personal information. That means your credit card numbers, your search history, everything you can think of that you do online. Surfshark takes that info and puts a metaphorical lead shield around it, so even metaphorical Superman can't take a metaphorical peek. Setting up a VPN is also really easy. I had never used one before, and I had Surfshark downloaded and running on my computer in less than 5 minutes. You just install the app, log in, and hit connect. Boom. Your computer is now fully protected. And it works on more than just your PC. Mac computers, smartphones, video game consoles. If you want to connect to the internet on something, Surfshark will have your back. The best part? Picture this. It's summer. You're traveling abroad, but you want to watch Justice League Unlimited and they don't have Macs in that country. Well, that's very silly. Just hop on Surfshark and be like, hey, I'm actually in the United States. Shh, don't tell anybody. And it'll be like,
agreed.
Then just go on Netflix and watch JLU because they just put JLU on Netflix the other day.
That was too easy.
So head on over to the link in the description or use this fancy schmancy QR code in the corner to get yourself 3 free months of Surfshark VPN. Thank you so much to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. And now let's get back into this Robin suit business.
I tried to warn him.
The mid to late 90s were a pretty dang cool time to be a kid. Everything was like, whoa, rock and roll and Gatorade and skateboards. Like even Chuck E. Cheese turned into Tony Hawk for a second there. So when the Batman cartoon took a hard turn in 1997 and went through a visual makeover too, it felt perfectly natural. While Batman the Animated Series tended to be more mature and cerebral, the new Batman Adventures was more thrilling and fantastical, at least to elementary school me.
Look, Mommy. Those are real dinosaurs.
What I'm saying is BTAS was more like a book and TNBA was more like hip-hop. You know what they say in life, it's either books or hip-hop. Everybody says that. Batman the Animated Series had already gone through a name change, whether you missed it or not, to become The Adventures of Batman and Robin for its final couple of quickie seasons, due to network execs believing kids responded better to other kids. Hence, Robin should be more upfront and featured, and Dick Grayson did go on to appear in nearly every episode after that point. But he wasn't a kid.
Come on. I don't get to do this much since I started college.
He was like 18, 19, 20, somewhere in there, and I didn't care. I, a child, was never thinking, no, Batman sucks because he's old. But that didn't stop the network from continuing to have this opinion for the entire rest of the DC animated universe. So when we got to the new Batman Adventures and the creative team had the chance to switch a bunch of stuff up, they opted to turn Dick Grayson into Nightwing and introduce a new Robin, who was a kid. 13-year-old Tim Drake took up the mantle of the Boy Wonder after stealing the Robin suit out of the Batcave and... Wait, why is... the Robin suit had a bunch of green on it, didn't it? I'm being facetious, of course it did. What in the hell is this?
It used to make Master Dick furious. Most unfortunate.
Alfred's talking about the costume like it used to belong to Dick, but that's not... And then Tim takes it and it's never discussed again, and... Believe it or not, this is something that's bugged DCAU fans for as long as I can remember. I mean, maybe you believe it, this kind of thing is the topic of half our catalog of videos, so I won't give it any more pomp and circumstance. That's what this video is about. What the hell is this costume? Where did it come from? Why is it so red? What am I doing with my life? That stuff. You know what you came here for, you sick, sick person, you. We're gonna get to the bottom of this and figure out, really, for realsies, just why and how we went from this to
Red Robin. Yum.
So this Robin design was created specifically for the new Batman adventures, finalized in February 1997 by art director Glenn Murakami. Never before had Robin been just essentially completely black and red, and 1997 actually saw 2 new Robin suits in this striking color scheme. The design in every medium prior had always incorporated green somewhere in the costume. The new designs of the Bat family were very primary color coded, a nice balanced palette that complemented Batman's now pretty much monochromatic costume. According to the staff of the new Batman adventures, there wasn't really any thought put into why this Robin suit was different from the one we'd seen on Batman the Animated Series. And I don't say that to make them sound neglectful or like they didn't put any effort into anything they did. Not the case at all. But what is the case is that, well, the folks who made these cartoons just simply didn't care about those kinds of details the way we 30-something neckbeards do while hyper-analyzing them way past their expiration date. That was supposed to be referring to the shows, but I suppose I'm also past my expiration date. The irony is not lost on me. To Bruce Timm and company, that was Robin then, and this was Robin now. End of story. Therefore, unsurprisingly, Tim Drake's origin episode, Sins of the Father, acts like, "Hey champ, this is the Robin suit. Always has been, always will be. Don't ask stupid questions. Get up onto Hydra's back." But the fact of the matter is, we had never seen this red version of the suit before this episode. Never, ever. Okay, I lied. We saw it the episode right before this, but that's only because that's the first episode, and this second episode that introduces the suit actually comes before the first episode, and in the first episode, Tim Drake is just Robin already because it's an anthology Christmas episode, and they just put Robin in it. Like, seriously, Robin wasn't even in the original comic version. They just stuck him in it for the hell of it, but they came right back afterward to explain the new Robin, so you wouldn't spend too much time being like, why is there a new Robin? Who the hell is this? So, like, you know what I mean. Throughout B-Test, Dick Grayson wore this red and green Robin costume, but we don't see that original recipe Robin suit anywhere in the Batcave during Sins of the Father. We only see this redder one.
Jeez, I don't believe it. It's the real Robin suit, isn't it?
So, like, if the show is trying to tell us that this just is the costume Robin wore before, then much like when we dove into Miss Martian's origin or how old Batman is,
Well, the way I see it, there are 3 possibilities.
number one, and I promise this is the most cop-out way to look at things, is that this literally is the same costume that Dick Grayson wore throughout Batman the Animated Series / The Adventures of Batman and Robin, but viewed through a different lens. Now, folks that have been around these parts for a while have probably heard me use that phrase a number of times. It covers a wide range of quote-unquote inconsistencies throughout the DCAU, such as Batman inexplicably wearing 2 different costumes back and forth during the same period of time, or the facial features of the Clown Prince of Crime molding across various shows and movies, or Superman's f***ing cheekbones. Essentially, what that means is that because the art style or direction is different between one DCAU project and another, a character's look changing, whether that be their costume or their eyeballs or their bones or whatever, doesn't mean it actually changes. They look the same as they always have, essentially, just in a new art style, which is why I said inconsistencies so sarcastically. This is certainly one way to look at things. Applying this to our Robin suit situation here means that if the first cartoon was ever to be seen in the updated style of the second cartoon, Dick Grayson would be colored like this, and we'd be expected to just be like, yep, makes sense, that's Robin, that's normal Robin right there. Only this can't be the case because of the episode Old Wounds. This episode sees the new Robin, Tim Drake, being told by Nightwing all about the time he punched Batman in the face and quit being Robin. And hey, would you look at that? He looks pretty much the same as he did in Batman the Animated Series, green pants and all. So now the show is telling us this is still what Dick Grayson wore. It didn't change, actually. There are canonically 2 Robin suits. Keen commenters will also jump at the chance to tell me that we do see Dick's green and red costume costume in the present day of the new Batman adventures in a Batcave case similar, but not quite the same as the all-red one in the episode Over the Edge. Batman and Tim run past it, and then it gets shot up by the police because the police are in the Batcave to arrest Batman because Batgirl died and Commissioner Gordon found out she was his daughter and is mad about it. That's what happens in this episode. But you knew that, right? You're keen, we've established this. But then that means you also know that, psych,
it was all a dream.
That's right. The only time we ever see Dick's Robin suit in TNBA in a non-flashback is when Batgirl gets doused with Scarecrow fear toxin and is, as Twitter user Vic Entity put it so elegantly, tripping balls, unconscious, and having a nightmare. Wait, who took her out of her Batgirl costume and put her in this hospital gown? Maybe I don't want to know. Now, why Batgirl would dream about Robin in a red suit running past a different Robin suit, unless both suits existed in real life, is beyond me. But with this in mind, both appearances of Dick's BTAS suit in TNBA are unfortunately rather loose in terms of the whole different lens thing, since one is a dream and the other is, after all, theoretically just being imagined by Tim while Nightwing tells him the story. It's the same way we've always explained away why the comic book version of this story has Batman in his BTAS suit and the cartoon has him in his TNBA suit. What we're seeing is just what's inside Tim's head, so there may be anachronisms. Even though the kid was like a Batman superfan before he became Robin, so he should know exactly what everybody was wearing during that time period, but I digress. What all this means is, if you really don't want to think harder about it, the different lens explanation kinda works due to unreliable narrators, or it doesn't work due to indisputable proof of both costumes. So maybe that's too wishy-washy for you. It certainly is for me, an insane person, so let's move on to option number 2. What if this red Robin costume actually belonged to a different Robin that we never saw on screen? Jason motherfucking Todd. Infamously, we shot ourselves in the bat foot by spending years saying the phrase, Jason Todd doesn't exist in the DCAU in our videos, and manifesting him into being via 2020's first volume of the Batman The Adventures Continue comic. This was more or less a continuation of the new Batman adventures in a sort of branching timeline that ignored everything already established that happens afterward, like the Justice League shows and Batman Beyond. It's one of many alternate DCAUs, but it did its best to squeeze in Jason Todd as being 100% confirmed to have been a Robin between Dick Grayson and Tim Drake, at least in that timeline. Before this comic existed, we the fans were under the impression that there really wasn't any way Jason could possibly fit into DCAU continuity. This animated version of the DC Universe's history has always taken liberties with its character interpretations, and DCAU Tim Drake was no exception, having been seen as sort of a combo of the comic book versions of Tim Drake and Jason Todd, both because of his Two-Face adjacent ruffian origin story, and because the Joker eventually horribly disfigured him and created basically Death in the Family, the cartoon version for kids. There was also the fact that, according to The Lost Years, the comic version of Dick putting in his notice of resignation that I mentioned a minute ago, only a little over 2 years passed between the two Batman cartoons. And looking even further into things, concluded that Jason could have only possibly shown up, become Robin, and then died in a period of roughly a couple months total. That would be pretty questionable of Batman to watch Tim roll up in a costume he just saw some other kid die in like a week prior and just go, okay, you can be Robin too, but don't think I'm jazzed about it. It didn't make sense, it didn't add up, there was very likely no Jason Todd. Then Batman The Adventures Continue said, oh, it's fine, honey, don't worry about it. I'm retconning it to be 4 years instead of 2, so there's room now. And Jason Todd there was. To be fair, the time between Jason and Tim in the original comics wasn't too far off from that questionably brief gap. Jason died in 1988 and Tim became Robin in 1990, roughly 30 comic issues apart. But that's what you get when you ask the world to vote for whether or not they want to kill Robin. So with this in mind, it's possible that this red suit we see show up suddenly without fanfare in the new Batman adventures was in fact the suit that belonged to Jason not Dick. Batman fanatic Tim Drake could certainly ask,
It's the real Robin suit, isn't it?
while playing the pronouns game, not saying it's Jason Todd he's talking about, but not saying that either. Adventures Continue, Tim was at least aware there was a mystery Robin right before him, even though Batman never gave him the details. Another reason this theory of Jason being the suit's owner may have come into existence is due to, years later, the Under the Red Hood animated movie coming out, which, while it isn't in the same continuity as BTAS and TNBA, did feature Jason wearing a red suit very similar to this one in its opening scene where he explodes. So, to someone coming into the DCAU for the very first time who has seen the Red Hood movie, it might set off alarms in their brain going, Hey buddy, that's Jason's suit, remember? Jason Todd wears the red suit. So cool that Jason Todd existed off screen and never comes up any other time, right? But even though there's all that, when we did finally see Jason as Robin in flashbacks in the Adventures Continue comic, he very clearly was not wearing this suit. It's a completely new Robin suit designed by the comic's artist, Ty Templeton. It takes some cues from Jason's original comic costume, but it's brand new. It ain't this one that Tim steals in Sins of the Father. Jason, as far as we know, never wore this red suit. In fact, he stole Dick's actual costume and jumped out of some smoke like he's on the cover of a 1940 Detective Comics issue, and then Batman said, Fine, you can be Robin. Here's your own completely separate Robin suit. And then he goes on to be crowbarred and blown up in said suit. So unless he also wore this red suit sometime that we never saw for some godforsaken reason, then even in the version of the DCAU where Jason does exist, this is not his suit. So what is it? Well, therein lies option number 3. It's Dick Grayson's suit. Wait, this can't be right. We already ruled that out. Oh, would you look at that? You're back from last video, where we'd mentioned we'd be giving away the first of several bundles of cool DCAU stuff. We randomly chose a winner from the comments, and you are that winner. Time to send an email to contest@watchtowerdatabase.com with your name and mailing address. Remember, US residents only, so if we gotta pick someone else, let us know. In the meantime, our next batch of giveaways includes everything you see here on screen, and all you gotta do to enter to win is leave a comment on this video. More giveaways will be happening every video for the foreseeable future, so subscribe so you don't miss them. And if we get to 200 Patreon supporters, we'll do an episode of our Will It Canon show on Teen Titans and the Batman. You know you want that. Patreon links in the description. Whoa. That was very weird. To set this up, I need to remind you of something. Remember when Bruce Wayne got all old and was like, I can't be Batman anymore, so he hung up his Batman costume and turned off the lights, and then 20 years passed and some punk teenager broke in and took it? Jeez, Bruce Wayne really has an unfortunate history of children stealing clothes out of his basement. But remember how these two people have completely different body types, and yet the Batsuit fit them both flawlessly? Well, we've talked in the past about how the Batman Beyond Batsuit is potentially made out of the same form-fitting liquid metal as the Batwoman costume. But either way, it's future tech, it's whatever. The Batsuit fits, I must acquit. The same can't really be applied to Tim Drake stealing Dick Grayson's former Robin costume unless said Dick Grayson was also a very small boy. Yes, Dick needed stupid-ass leg extension stilt things to match Bruce's height, but he wasn't that much shorter than him. Certainly not the drastic height difference we see between Bruce and Tim on a regular basis. So for Tim to be wearing a Robin costume that would fit him, it would have to be from when Dick was younger, yeah? Well, let's take a look at, Batman Adventures Volume 2, number 12, real quick. Just a little peek. Here we get a flashback to, as Dick states in the issue, one of my first outings as Robin, the boy wonder. Batman is seen in his original costume that we got glimpses of in various BTAS flashbacks. We see the original Batmobile, and, damn it, that's not the Red Robin costume at all. He's a little 40s looking Burt Ward wannabe. And there's even this little montage at the end where we see the Batcave evolving over the years, and the Robin suit timeline seems to go very clearly from Peter Pan boots to BTAS costume to Tiny Tim. No sign of the red costume in the middle anywhere.
Why haven't I worn this yet?
I mean, that's cool and all, I guess. Go pay homage to the original comic book Robin costumes, see if I care. I just wanted an answer to this stupid Robin suit conundrum for Darkseid's sake. Maybe I should take a break. Sit down and relax with a nice issue of Gotham Adventures. That's neat. I forgot they used to have letters to the editor sections in the back. I wonder what fun stuff people asked about in this one. Last year's Nightwing, Black and Costume Wars. Okay. This is embarrassing. Turns out, we knew the answer ever since fall of 1998. We just didn't know that we knew it. Now we know we knew, you know? This fan letter section in the back of Batman Gotham Adventures number 3 featured a submission talking about the Lost Years comic from someone that we'll just call Dave, because that's his name, which was answered by the comics editor Darren J. Vincenzo, saying, "Thanks for your thoughts, Dave. Some of my favorite parts of the Lost Years were the establishing of costume details, including the fact that we learned that the costume Tim wears is Dick's original Robin costume." Yes, thank you very much, Dave. Dave Van Domelen from Ohio State. Or at least you were attending Ohio State in 1998, or maybe a few years prior to that and they forgot to shut off your student email address. That happened to me in college. I kept getting emails at my school address for like 2 years after they finally realized, oh, LOL, he doesn't even go here. But yes, thank you, Dave. Daddy. We owe 25-year-ago you for the solving of this beautiful little mystery. Now, teensy issue, Darren does say original Robin costume, which I guess we can say got retconned by Batman Adventures Volume 2 to actually be this one. But hey, Lost Year's Tim said original Robin suit, and that was reverse retconned by the higher tier canon cartoon to be, it's the real Robin suit, isn't it? It's easy enough to say Dick wore this first, then eventually probably had some kind of
I could use pants
moment and got the red costume.
It's the short shorts, isn't it? I can get you longer shorts if that'll make a difference.
And then when he outgrew that one, he got the one we see throughout Batman the Animated Series. Maybe around the time he went off to college and got his long-lasting dgraso@gothamstate.edu email address. I went ahead and emailed Darren J. Vincenzo to ask if he could clarify anything about his answer, considering the conflicting continuity. Understandably, since said answer was from friggin' 1998, he didn't 100% recall the circumstances or context. And since he didn't write that story, that was the late great Hilary J. Bader, he's not the top authority on the subject. But he did say, from my answer that you supplied, I would guess that the backstory on Tim's costume is that it was worn by Dick at some point. And that's good enough for me! So I think we did it. We've got basically a canon explanation for the chronology of Robin suits. It makes all the sense in the world that little Mr. Tim, I'm the same super short height when I'm 13 as when I'm pushing 21, Drake would take the one he'd fit in best. What doesn't make a whole lot of sense is why that one would have been on display in the Batcave so prominently. I guess we could say that Bruce just wanted to remember his first Robin, his first adopted kid who left him angrily and through mutual betrayal, as how he was when he was more innocent.
They don't call you Batman for nothing.
I mean, he puts this red suit right out in the open while he tucks the red and green one down a big flight of stairs in some random hallway next to a bunch of unidentifiable machinery like it's hoped to be forgotten by Alfred's spring cleaning. By the time of the Batman Beyond future, organized display cases had rooted themselves along the back wall of the Batcave for a much more pleasant presentation and or memorialization of all the old Bat family costumes, or at least theoretically the final versions to be worn by said family members. That well-balanced primary color scheme is so lovely, undoubtedly an aesthetic choice to arrange them in such a way. There's red, yellow, blue, yellow again. Yellow again? So even though we as a society had access to this answer for the last 25 or so years, we here at the Watchtower Database finally decided to make a video about it, and now you can finally sleep easy at night. I know this was the only bothersome thing going on in your life, right? Now you can sleep? Okay, sick. You know what? Actually, screw all of this video. My new heart canon is that the red suit really belonged to Bruce Wayne as a kid. And just like in Silver Age comic continuity, Bruce was actually Robin before he became Batman. Yeah, that's a thing I just learned. Detective Comics 226 from 1955. There's an old detective dude that Bruce admires and he wants to be his sidekick, so he makes a flashy little costume and the dude's like, I'll call you Robin, even though the costume already had an R on it for no reason. Yeah, that's it. Absolutely canon to the DCAU. It's also funny to note that despite everything, Tim Drake would kinda often get miscolored with green pants. And another funny story, Dick Grayson's BTAS suit was ironically based on the costume costume that Tim Drake wore in the comics around the time BTAS was first in production. Like, look at the cover of 1991's Robin #1. That's just BTAS Dick Grayson, except it's not, it's Tim Drake. This comic costume of Tim's and the cartoon costume of Dick's are almost identical, save for the lumpy ridge things he's got on his gloves, which actually did appear in the original Robin design for BTAS, as seen in the show's Writer's Bible, where Dick is much younger looking despite still already being described as 20 years old and in college. Good luck, college Dick! DCA Universe on DeviantArt even did a rendering of Dick's original BTAS design, but colored like Tim Drake's costume, as a neat little window into what this otherwise off-screen, in-between state might have looked like. I even went ahead and did up the very first one in a cleaner, model sheet-looking way, so you can see all three Dicks side by side. Their heights changed too, so you can even measure the Dicks. TNBA's red Tim Drake suit did transfer over into the comics for a short while after Infinite Crisis in the mid-2000s. And Tim even took on the name Red Robin in the exact same costume of the original Red Robin character from Kingdom Come, who was actually that universe's Dick Grayson, though this suit was brought back from Earth 51 after some multiverse hopping by Jason Todd. They're all wrapped up in this, I don't know what to tell you. But overall, despite all the craziness of comics, the red look is just a very sleek, simplified version of the classic Robin costume, and I love it. I'll tell you, when that meme gets passed around every now and then about what you could do a TED Talk on without any prep, it's always this for me. It's random DCAU character design shit. So here's my question of the day for you fine folks. What other mysteries surrounding costumes or character designs would you like to see us talk about? I've already got a couple on the brain, but I want to know if there's a consensus that we need to cover this or that specific thing. Comment below with your answer. And if you don't got an opinion on that in particular, then comment how many times you think I said dick in this video, and we'll feature the first person to get it right next time. Before I go, I want to make sure everyone watching is aware of something. We have a podcast where I'm showing my good buddy Brian the entire DCAU from start to finish for the very first time. It's called Jump on the Batwagon, and you can find it wherever you normally listen to podcasts, as well as our second channel, The Pod Tower. Part of the gimmick is that we're watching everything in air date order, as if Brian is a kid in the 90s growing up and watching all this stuff as it actually came out. This means sometimes part 1 and 2 of an episode are separated by several other episodes, or for a more specific brain-rotting example, Brian will wind up watching the Sub-Zero movie several weeks after watching Cold Comfort, the TNBA episode that follows up that movie. It's fun, you guys. Come listen to it. Thanks for watching this video, and thank you again to Surfshark for being our first official sponsor. We're big kids now. And of course, a huge thank you to all our Patreon supporters whose names you see scrolling by here, especially Luke Mears, Mystic Angel, and Jonathan Andrew Brantley, who get their names read out loud because of how keen they are. You too can be keen by going to patreon.com/DCAU Watchtower. Remember, Teen Titans the Batman Willet Cannon is on the docket, but only if we reach 200 patrons. Okay, see you next time.